welcome back, and thank you for being here.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
So the first one we you did talk about in episode one, but we'll go back a little bit and just bring us into it. Your first one basically was you were involved in a movie called Thou Shalt Not Kill.
Thou shalt not kill, except. Right.
Except.
Yeah.
Don't forget the except.
Yeah, I co-wrote that script with an old friend of mine from Detroit, Josh Becker. And Josh is the guy who introduced me to Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell, Scott Spiegel, all these Detroit guys. So he was my hookup to all of them. And we wrote this script. Josh came up with the basic idea, which was basically some Marines. They're just back from Vietnam, and they're living on the same block with the Manson family, and so then they get into it with the Manson family at the end, and they blow the Mansons away. What other movie does that sound like?
Yeah,
Once
Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Time in Hollywood. And just a week ago, so Scott Spiegel, who co-wrote the script for that movie, he passed away a few weeks ago, and we had a memorial for him at the Vista Theater in Los Feliz, and the Vista is owned by Quentin Tarantino. So we had a memorial there, and the whole gang was there. It was just great. It was Lawrence Bender and Quentin was there, and Sam Raimi was there, and we were talking about all this stuff. It was just great. And Quentin got up there and gave a bit of a eulogy about Scott, and talked about how he met Scott, which was through me. Basically, Quentin was working at Imperial Entertainment at the time when I was doing prep on Lionheart. So he was basically calling video stores all over the country, trying to sell them Imperial Entertainment productions. Like, Black Eagle, and my favorite title was Ninja versus Zombie. It sounds like something you'd see nowadays, actually. So he comes up to me one day and says, "Hey, you're Sheldon Lettich. You co-wrote Thou Shalt Not Kill, Except." And he was really excited about it. He loved that movie. Well, of course, what did that turn into about 10 years later? All right. And then we got to talking for a little while, and he was amazingly conversant with B movies, low budget movies. He loved stuff like that. He loved Thou Shalt Not Kill, Except. And I told him, Quentin, I got to introduce you to a friend of mine named Scott Spiegel. And he flipped out, like, Scott Spiegel, he co-wrote Evil Dead 2. Yeah. So, okay, I got the two of them in touch with one another. And that turned into a very productive relationship, actually. Scotty ended up directing I think he did one of the Dusk Till Dawn movies. He ended up doing one of the Hostel movies. He directed, I believe, Hostel 3. So that led to a long and productive relationship, which only ended a few months ago when Scotty passed away prematurely.
So you kind of became the linchpin.
Scott used to call me the linchpin because I hooked up so many people in this. Forget about Sam Raimi and Jean-Claude. I hooked those two guys up. But I also hooked up Lawrence Bender with Boaz Yakin and with Scott Spiegel. And that's how Lawrence got hooked up with Quentin Tarantino, basically through my introduction to Scott Spiegel. So, and Scotty used to say, "Hey, Sheldon, you know what? You're the linchpin of all of us." Yeah, I hooked up. That's how I met Sam Raimi also, and Bruce Campbell, all of them.
You're the glue with a lot of the cinema history.
I'm the glue. I'm right in the middle of everything. Yeah.
So after that movie, then came your first directorial debut, Firefight.
Correct. Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about that, because you got Brian Thompson in there, you got Frank Dukes, who of course we've already spoke about in the Bloodsport section, and also of course Brian Thompson in the Lionheart section. But just take us through that.
Okay. I'll wait till my phone stops ringing. But
Here, we can.
I think I talked about Firefight a little bit already. Oh, you don't have to pause anything.
No, I'm just gonna see the time.
Okay.
About 5 minutes.
8 minutes. If you want to reframe that, I can cut that out and we'll have it.
Just put in it.
I think we talked about
Yeah,
Firefight.
we just want to talk about it just like briefly because we're in your section now,
Right.
independent of Jean-Claude.
Okay.
So
well,
if you just give us something on Firefight, then we're going to go straight into your next one,
Right.
which was Ruskies.
Right. Yeah. Well,
That's so much.
Firefight. I talked about the fact that it was based on a scene that I wrote from my play, Traces, my Vietnam veteran play. And the director decided not to use it on stage because it was just too big of a story. It involved helicopters and all this stuff. So he said, no, we're not going to do that one, which is fine with me, but I still love that scene. And so I turned it into a little screenplay. And I wanted to turn this into a movie. So Frank Dukes, who I knew at the time, this was before Bloodsport. This sort of coincides with the beginnings of Bloodsport, really. Uh, Frank, even though he denies it over and over again, wanted to be an actor. He wanted to be a movie star. He thought he had movie star potential. He used to compare himself to Tom Selleck all the time. And he did have kind of a Tom Selleck look about him back in the day. So he wanted to be an actor. I don't think he ever took any acting classes or anything like that. But then I said, okay, I want to make this little movie, Firefight, and would you like to produce it with me? And I'll give you the lead role, playing one of the main characters. So he was all about that because yeah, I'm gonna get some film on myself now. Playing a Marine in Vietnam, he was totally into that. So Frank actually. I raised most of the money myself, and it wasn't much. We spent about $25,000 on that little movie. Frank actually contributed a little bit of money to it. We did. We had auditions and things at his dojo, and Frank actually pulled in a number of people that were crucial to making this little movie. He helped me find a cinematographer. He helped me find stunt people, especially. I needed it's a Vietnam story. I needed Asians. I needed Asians who could do stunts, who could fight. So Frank introduces me to Philip Reed and Simon Reed, and
And who else was just Philip and Simon or the ones that kind of grew up and up out of that and went and did more stuff, or were there other?
There was a guy named Jeff Haverstad who became I don't like not a huge name stunt coordinator, but he's been doing stunt coordinating. He worked on it. I
So
never
it's the
really
start of quite a few people's careers. I mean, because Brian Thompson was in it as well.
Right.
So
Brian, I found I advertised for actors in Dramalog, which was like a weekly magazine that came out in L.A.
yeah,
And so Brian happened to pick up a copy of Dramalog, saw that there's this little Vietnam movie shooting. He'd never been in a movie before. He was I believe he's got a master's degree in theater from I forgot the school, but he was a trained actor, but had never been in a movie. And here's his chance to be in a movie. He came in, he auditioned, and I thought he was terrific, so I cast him as one of the main characters. Interestingly, after Firefight, I know he put the scenes from it on his reel that he was showing to actors and agents. The next film he got was Terminator. Okay. Brian Thompson.
yeah, at the beginning, yeah.
At the beginning of Terminator, he's the guy who gets his heart ripped out by the Terminator.
Yeah.
Okay, so he ended up doing that. And then Stallone called him in, and he ended up being I think his character is called the Night Stalker in Cobra.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he mentioned the Sly that I knew Brian Thompson. Oh yeah, you know Brian. So Brian, that was Brian's next big movie, and he's actually gone on to do quite a few things. And I've used him. I think, in 4 movies. I put him in Lionheart. I didn't have a role for him. I created a role. specifically for him, and
It was a good role.
a good role. That
Yeah.
worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
I
Talk
did it.
to us a little bit about the complexities of making a movie like Firefight, because there's quite a bit of action. You've got helicopters. There's a lot of scope to it.
Right,
Talk
right,
to us about the complexities of doing that with limited experience at that time
right, right. Yeah.
and limited budget. And you know,
Right.
25,000 is not a lot of money even by those standards to make that sort of movie.
To make a movie that's got it's got a CH-46 helicopter.
Yeah.
It's actually part of the story.
Yeah.
Well, I went down to Camp Pendleton, which is a Marine Corps base in California, and introduced myself and told them, look, I'm a former Marine. I was in Vietnam with the Marines, and I'm planning to make this little movie with and there's another. I think Frank. I'm not sure if Frank came with me, but this other guy's. I made Frank a producer on the movie, and he's a former Marine too. So this kind of gave me a little bit of credibility with the Marines. So they were kind of open to working with me, and I told them we'd like to shoot here at Camp Pendleton. It's just sprawling
Yeah.
Marine base,
Huge.
and we need to do explosions and things like that. It's going to be hard to get permission to do that in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
You know, we have to get licenses or whatever. But and Frank hooked me up with a guy who could do some special effects too. So there's this guy who knew how to do explosion, and he could get his hands on
Some good stuff.
the material that you needed to do with explosions.
In regards to the helicopter, you didn't have to pay for nothing, right?
I'm coming to that too. That was so I'm talking to the Marines, and I tell them we really need a helicopter for some of the key scenes in this little movie, and I would love to get a CH-46, which was sort of the workhorse helicopter of the Marines back then. And I can't remember all the details of how we made it work, but basically they hooked me up with the Air Wing, Marine Corps Air Wing, and they got a couple of pilots to volunteer to be in this movie, and they were both lieutenant colonels. So we're not talking we're not talking about
the run of the litter.
Huh?
Wasn't the run to the litter.
No, these guys were some very experienced helicopter pilots, and they wanted to do it.
That's awesome.
So
how many shoot days did you have?
I did it. I shot the movie basically on 2 weekends.
So 4 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Two. We had to do weekends, and there's a lot of logistics involved. Basically, I had to get some motel rooms down in Oceanside to put people up because they're going to drive down in the morning and do some shooting. We stay overnight, and the next day we resume shooting, and then everybody goes home. But still, it's a bit of work to get hotel rooms, pay for them, and then we got to feed people. We had we actually rented a big motorhome, and that was like our production office.
Okay.
So that had to be driven down there too. So everybody had to drive down, and I had to get costumes for everybody. Basically, I went to a surplus store, and I got a bunch of. Fortunately, we were not that far removed from the Vietnam War, so it was not that difficult to get the uniforms and the web gear and all that stuff. And then we also had to get rifles that we could use in the film that would shoot blanks. And so one of the people that Frank hooked me up with was able to get in with. There was a company called Stembridge that was a rental company that rented weapons to movie productions. So we did a deal with Stembridge, and we got all these M16s that fired blanks. So that's why there's a bunch of shooting in the movie, because I rented these M16 rifles. There was a lot of logistics involved, actually. If I had to go back and do it again, I would say, no, I don't think so. This is going to be way too much work. It was a lot of work, but we got it done. And we did shoot on like 2 successive weekends because people we're not talking about professional actors. We didn't pay anybody. We had some kind of deal with everybody that Well, if the movie ever makes any money, then you get paid something.
Well, I mean, they all got paid dividends in the long run. I mean, look how much you use Brian Thompson.
Right, right.
That right there is huge.
Well, yeah, just about every actor who worked on the movie at least had some footage of themselves in a movie that looked really good. We shot on 16 millimeter. This is not, we're talking like 1983.
Yeah.
You did not shoot a movie on an iPhone. There were no such thing as iPhones back then. Basically, if you wanted to shoot a movie, and actually, to even videotape was not all that easy to shoot on back then. Yeah, you could shoot on 3/4 inch videotape, but you'd have to rent the stuff. Just like I had to rent the 16 millimeter cameras, so we had to rent cameras.
And they were huge cameras back in the day.
Yeah, well, yeah, 16 millimeter wasn't as bad as 35.
Yeah.
So on top of that, it's not digital. Digital doesn't exist yet. You got to buy film. You got to buy rolls and rolls of 16 millimeter film, and you got to hire people who know how to load the cameras.
Did you cut this film as well, Sheldon? Did you?
Yeah.
You edited it.
I did. Yeah, the editing.
How long did that take?
It took a few. It took a few months actually. It took some time. And the editing. That's how I ended up meeting Mark Dacascos.
Yeah, that's how the next chapter started.
Who produced Kickboxer Bloodsport, and I was editing. There was this very low budget post-production house in Hollywood called Movie Tech, and they had 16 millimeter editing machines, which you couldn't find everywhere. Easier to get 35 millimeter. But we shot on 16, and so we edited on 16. And next door to me was another editing room, and there's an editor named Ruben Mazzini in there. And Ruben was also a former Marine, just coincidentally. So Ruben and I ended up talking a lot, and Ruben was cutting a movie for Mark Dacascos, which was a porno movie, by the way. I guess Mark produced a few porno movies back in the day. Right around this time, I had been hired by Stallone to co-write Rambo III. So
now take us into that. How did? Well, we'll go into it. I guess you're going to finish the firefight story, right?
Yeah,
So
it's a long story.
Then take us from how your first.
Did Firefight parlay into Rambo 3?
No. Firefight had nothing to do with.
So let's finish Firefight and then take it from the very start, from when you get a call about Stallone and Rambo 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, anyways, I was just talking about Mark Dacascos, and Mark told his editor Ruben that he's looking for a writer because he's got an idea for a martial arts movie. There haven't been any martial arts movies for a while. I think they're going to make a comeback. So somebody needs to do a really good martial arts movie. I got an idea called Kickboxer. I'm looking for a writer. And so Ruben tells him, well, the guy who's co-writing Rambo 3 is in the editing room right next to me. He is okay. No shit. Can we invite him to lunch? Let me invite him to lunch. I want to pitch Kickboxer to him. So I have lunch with Mark Dacascos. I pitch Kickboxer. He pitches Kickboxer to me. And I wasn't really loving the Kickboxer pitch. I said, okay, Mark, I think I got a better idea for a martial arts movie. It's called Bloodsport. Bloodsport. Immediately he's taken by that title. It's just perfect title for a martial arts movie. And so I tell him a little bit about the story about Frank Dukes and the Kumite and all of this. And I got the magazine. I've got Black Belt Magazine with the article about Frank Dukes and the Kumite. The article's called Kumite, A Learning Experience. And I tell Mark, and Mark's interested. He's liking this idea. And I tell him, well, I can actually introduce you to the guy, Frank Dukes, who won the Kumite. He's got a martial arts dojo in North Hollywood, not far from here. So we can all get together for lunch if you want. So that's what happened. That was the next step. We get together for lunch. He likes what he's hearing. And then he ends up signing signing me to write the screenplay, and signing Frank for the permission to use his true life story. Okay, and Frank just to this very day maintains that all of this stuff about Bloodsport, the Kumite and CIA and all this is true, but it's pretty much been debunked by absolutely everybody.
And when he signs you, did you get paid?
Yes, I
Yeah.
actually got paid something. I actually got paid. I believe I got paid maybe $1,200.
Okay.
Okay, and there was more promise on the back end. If the movie actually got produced, then I was supposed to get an additional 35,000. I believe.
Okay. Oh, that's not bad.
Which hey,
That's pretty.
actually ended up getting. You know, long story, but eventually the movie did get into production.
So just to jump back to Firefight.
Okay.
When you edit it, and what was your ultimate goal with it at that point in time, Sheldon? Was it to use it as like a demo reel piece? Was it to go into
Parlay.
into different film festivals? And what happened to it then? Because you went on to do a lot of work.
Right.
Did it just lay in the drawer for a number of years, or like what happened?
Well, I was hoping I could do something with it, get it on, film festivals, or maybe they used to give Oscars for short films. I think they still do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was sort of the goal. Like, maybe we'll be able to even like enter it in for the Academy Awards to get a short subject Oscar. That would be great if we could do that. But on top of all that, I just wanted to make this movie.
Right.
Now, I had been to the American Film Institute as a cinematographer, and so I knew how to make a movie. I learned a lot making Firefight. Good thing I made Firefight before I moved on to Lionheart and Double Impact, because I did pick up I learned a lot working on that film, working with the actors, working with a big crew, guns.
I mean, having a helicopter on, that's as big as you're gonna get. A helicopter, that's as big as you're gonna get right there, wouldn't you say?
Well, that was the main reason they couldn't do it in the theater, right? Because you needed a helicopter.
We could have faked it. We could have just pretended we were bringing a helicopter in, but what we really needed to do was what they did on Miss Saigon, where they actually had a Huey helicopter
Inside
suspended on cables, and when the helicopter was supposed to come in and land, they did sound effects, and then they actually lowered this Huey onto the stage. But
well, you did it a million times.
That makes a little bit of money, but what you did was better because it's a real helicopter.
Yeah, a real helicopter.
Yeah, and you didn't have to pay $1, correct?
We ended up not paying it.
Not even for gas. No.
I was supposed to pay for gas.
Oh, yeah.
For fuel. But we didn't have the money at the time. I said, guys, can you just suspend that for a little while until I get the money? I never did get the money to pay.
They never went after you or nothing?
They never went after me.
That's great.
No.
Let me ask you this, Sheldon. How did the cast get along back in those days? I mean, you got a lot of new green people. How did they get along? Is there any relationships that formed, anything like that?
The only real relationship actually, everybody got along pretty well. And the only real relationship that went anywhere was me and Brian Thompson, because I ended up using Brian in a few films.
Yeah. Well, Philip got his tooth knocked out.
Philip got his tooth knocked out by Brian Thompson accidentally.
Yeah. Can you tell us how that happened?
That was pretty horrendous, actually. One thing I learned with that incident was, don't put actors in with stuntmen. Okay. Unless you've got everything rehearsed really well, don't put actors in as stuntmen, because somebody's going to get hurt. Most likely it's a stuntman. So the two of them, we hadn't really worked it out all that well. The two of them were kind of wrestling, and Brian's in front. He's got a steel helmet on, and Philip's behind him, and Brian jerks his head back to try and get away from Philip, and ends up smacking Philip right in the teeth. And I've got it on film. It's on film. You see Philip go, grabbing his tooth. And fortunately, we're on this Marine Corps base, so they had doctors and dentists. So we basically took Philip down to to where the dentists were, and they fixed his tooth
So
Wow.
for free.
Nice.
for free. Yeah.
So
That's
so you got double the bang for your buck. You got dental
So-
work done
so,
as well.
I guess-
free dental, right?
I guess my question is, why aren't we shooting our next film on campaign with it?
Right. And Philip's tooth was really busted in half.
You said, yeah,
Broken. Yeah.
broken half. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Looked pretty bad.
Me and him have that in common. My brother broke this tooth with the golf club back when I was 10 years old.
Oh, really?
This one,
Uh-huh.
fake.
And they fixed it.
Yeah,
Put
thanks
it
a lot,
back.
Aaron. You asshole.
Huh?
Yeah. Oh, I was telling my brother. Thanks.
Okay.
So Rambo 3 props up. Take us from the very first moment you hear about Sylvester Stallone doing Rambo 3 and you end up being the writer.
Okay. I wrote a screenplay a few years before called Firebase. Not Firefight, but Firebase. It's about a
Now, you wrote that before Firefight, or you wrote
correct
after?
before.
Okay.
So you're going back, what, late 70s maybe? Early
Yeah.
80s?
Probably late 70s.
Okay.
I wrote the script. It would be late 70s, and I hooked up with a guy that I went to high school with, named Bruce Nelson, and Bruce had also been in Vietnam. He was a medic over there. Yeah, they called him Doc Melson, and so we hooked up, and I had this idea for Firefight for basically Zulu in Vietnam, and ended up working on it with Bruce. Now, Bruce was in an artillery unit, and he was also a medic. So a lot of that was put into the screenplay. Basically, the fire bases were set up for artillery. Basically, it was called a fire base because it was a base that you could fire artillery from. They would usually have like 3 cannons there.
Right.
And so Bruce had a lot of great technical information for me about being an artillery, because I was never in an artillery.
Which is huge when you're writing a script.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we had 2 very important characters that were medics,
Mm-hmm.
and those medics, they were kind of based on Bruce, and Bruce had all kinds of great information, technical information about being a medic over there. So we wrote this screenplay, and I started showing it. I showed it to a few people, and everybody loved this screenplay. But I had no agent at the time, and I'm trying to remember who. I think I did. Actually, I did have an agent who introduced me to Harold Moskowitz. I'm trying to remember what the order was, but basically, I met Harold, and Harold was a agent who basically sold books, and he was trying to get into doing movies also. So Harold ended up being my agent for a while, based on Firebase. He thought it was a terrific screenplay. I don't know anybody who's read Firebase that didn't love it. Okay, Stallone loved it. Stallone, he kept telling me.
How did it get to Stallone?
Through my agent.
Through your agent.
I had another agent after Harold, and an agent named Lynn Radman, who got it to Stallone.
Now, did they get it because they knew he was about to go in for Rocky 3?
A guy.
I'm sorry, Rambo 3.
No, a guy like Stallone. Well, they'll put the word out to agents in town. Hey, I'm looking for Sylvester Stallone is looking for somebody to co-write Rambo 3 with. So my agent heard this, and she figured, okay, I'm the perfect guy to co-write it with him. But she sent him the screenplay first and the writing sample, and Sly ended up loving the screenplay. Nobody who's read it, if you were to read it, you'd say, "Wow, this is."
I'd love to read it.
Okay, I'll probably get a copy to you. Sam Raimi read it.
How'd Sam
And-
loved it?
Sam loved it. Sam, Bruce, and Rob Tapper, all those Detroit guys, Renaissance Pictures. And Sam actually, this is a fact that's not well known, but I do have proof that it actually happened. Sam hired me to write the first draft of Army of Darkness, which is basically Evil Dead 3, which is called, we called it the Medieval Dead.
And that's actually a lot of people's favorite.
You're right.
It's Army of Darkness.
It's got all these big battle scenes in it. And I did write the very first draft. But then Sam, I think Sam and his brother took it from there. They took my screenplay, and then they started adding all their crazy Detroit stuff to it that I didn't have in it. So I actually did write the first draft of Army of Darkness, but took no credit on it.
That's awesome to know.
Yeah, but I'm co-writing Rambo 3 with Sylvester Stallone. I don't need credit.
Well, tell me this: you get that call. I mean, we are all in the business, and when you get these calls that it sounds like you're about to get something really hot, really good. We know what it feels like. Maybe the audience doesn't. I mean, you get that call that you're going to be co-writing. Take us through that. How does that feel?
I was pretty jazzed about that.
I bet.
Because Sylvester Stallone, first of all, was an idol of mine. All right, I loved the Rocky films, and I loved Rambo II, the predecessor to this one. And he was the biggest star in the world at the time. He was #1 worldwide.
Yeah.
And so to me, it was a real privilege to hear that I even have a meeting with Sylvester Stallone.
So is this Stallone that called you, or your agent called you and said, "Go meet Sylvester Stallone"?
Stallone had he had a person who did the reading for him, who read scripts, writers. Vicky Pasternak was her name. She was his creative executive. I forgot what her title was, but basically, she's the one that was reading the scripts and interviewing people for co-writing the slot. So she tells me, so they want to meet with you. I'm not sure if you're going to meet with Stallone, but you're going to meet with Vicky at least, and bring something. It's probably for Rambo 3. I don't know for sure, but bring something else. Pitch something else to him besides Rambo 3. So you're not just trying to get Rambo 3. So at the time, I was very interested in the subject of the French Foreign Legion. And there was a magazine at the time called M Magazine. I should have brought it in and show it. I still have.
Well, we can get a picture. We can put it on here.
It's got the cover is a French Foreign Legionnaire, contemporary one with the green beret. And there was a whole article about the contemporary French Foreign Legion. So I had already pitched Legionnaire to Paramount, and they actually were interested. They were interested, and then I pitched it to Vicky and Stallone's company, and actually, so my agent had to tell Paramount, hey, we've got some interest in Sylvester Stallone, so we can't make a deal with you guys yet. And they thought we were basically playing basically just trying to leverage it so I get more money writing the screenplay. But we said, no, Sylvester Stallone really wants to talk about a French Foreign Legion project. Okay, so I ended up talking to Sly about that, and he wanted to do a contemporary version, something that took place present day, and I wanted to do a historical version that took place in the 20s, like the Beaujolais there. So he's the guy hiring me. He's the guy writing the checks. So of course I'm going to write the contemporary version for him, and I did. But I ended up making it. It was, I believe, it might have been a two-year, two-picture deal. Basically, I was hired to co-write Rambo 3 and French Foreign Legion, and I believe there was room for another project also because I think it was a 2-year deal. I still got the paperwork. I could dig it up one of these days. Anyways, when I finally met, so I showed her the magazine, and she says, she freezes. She says, "Okay, just stay right there. I'm going to go in the back. I'll be right back." She goes in the back room. She comes out. She's got the exact same magazine. Stallone had the same idea that I had.
And see, that is wild to me because you hear about this kind of stuff all the time. Things line up like this.
Right.
It's crazy. It's almost like, think about all these ideas you've had in your head, Sheldon, over your entire career. They were put there for a freaking reason. You know what I mean? They didn't just. It's weird, right?
This is the stars, like the stars.
The stars align, right? In a way, they do.
We needed a we needed somebody who could play Frank Dukes in Bloodsport.
That's what I'm saying.
Stars aligned, like, okay, Menachem runs into Jean-Claude Van Damme, brings Jean-Claude in, and before you know it,
It's like it's already written. You're just going through the sequence. You know what I mean?
Possibly, yeah.
But think about this. There's so many because you had the nuts to go out and take action to do this stuff.
Right.
Other people have these thoughts and they don't have the nuts to ante up and go do it because you can imagine there's probably tons of people out there.
Or they do have the nut and it just doesn't work.
It just doesn't work.
Right.
True. Like you were talking about Quentin earlier.
Right.
Look at that. What if he was a mute?
Quentin was up there. Actually, he talked about it at Scotty's memorial.
Right.
And his story was basically just what you're saying. I wanted to be an actor, and I was working on this video store with all the people who worked in the video store. They all had dreams like that too, but they were all. I wouldn't say he called them losers, but he had some other way of basically saying like these people weren't going anywhere and they weren't going to advance my career. So he got fed up with working at the video store and then ended up working at Imperial Entertainment. So again, the stars are aligning.
That's what I'm saying.
So he meets me, but doesn't just stay quiet. Actually says, "You're the guy who wrote something I can't accept." So we start talking, and then I realized that this guy would really this guy would probably love to meet Scott Spiegel. But Scotty was also a horror nerd, action nerd. He loved B movies, so they were both fans of B movies, and they both knew everybody who ever worked on a B movie. So these guys are going to hit it off. So, hey, Quentin, look, here's Scott's. I'm going to call Scott Spiegel. I'm going to hook him up with you, and I think you guys will get along really well. Well, they did. Yeah, that turned into something gigantic, actually.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. It's so great.
And Quentin's the one who told the story. He said, so I meet this guy, Sheldon Lettich, and then he introduced me to Scott Spiegel. And now I'm meeting real people. I'm meeting people who are really making movies, not just working in a video store. Yeah. So he felt that was a big jump for him. And then, through Scott, he met Lawrence Bender. And Lawrence.
So law of attraction, putting yourself in those shoes and going.
Yeah.
Not being afraid to take action. Mike.
Yeah, and Quentin showed him a couple of the screenplays, one of which was Reservoir Dogs. And so Lawrence liked Reservoir Dogs and tells Quentin, you know what, I think we should, this is like me saying, I think I should shoot Firefight.
Yeah.
16 millimeter. Basically, that was the plan. I went over to Lawrence's apartment a few times, and he and Quentin were there, and they were doing all the budgets and schedules and all of that for Reservoir Dogs. They didn't have the money yet, but basically they're saying, we're going to make this damn movie.
There's a way.
We're going to shoot it in 16 millimeter if we have to, but we'll shoot it.
Yeah.
And what ended up moving their project along was Lawrence knew another director, an editor, who knew I'm having some memory problems lately, guys. Who played Mr. White in Reservoir Dogs?
Harvey.
Harvey Keitel.
Yeah.
Okay, so this guy knew Harvey Keitel. He said, let me get the script to Harvey Keitel. I think he's gonna like.
That's gonna do it if he's.
So Harvey Keitel reads it, and then tells him, I like the screenplay. I'd like to play Mr. White, by the way. And Harvey hooks them up with the people at Live Entertainment. And before you know it, they've got a budget to make this movie, which they ended up shooting 35 millimeter, not 16 millimeter. Yeah. So anyway, that's diverging, but that's basically in line with what you're saying about one thing leads to another.
Yes.
And the stars were just aligned. The stars were aligned for me to meet Quentin, me to introduce Quentin to Lawrence, and Quentin just. And the thing is that it's not just pure luck. Quentin had some screenplays that he had written that were good.
You had to put the time in.
Yeah.
So he has to have the talent.
Yeah, he had something to show. He had something to show to Harvey Keitel. Yeah.
So to get back to Rambo 3.
Yeah.
You're in the room with Stallone.
Right.
do you walk out of that room with a deal to write what is Rambo 3? And then the Rambo 3 we see on screen.
No, I didn't walk out of the room with a deal. Basically, Stallone and I met. We hit it off, and basically, I told him what my idea was for Rambo 3, which was Afghanistan. And he was thinking along the same lines, but he's not the one that that expressed it. I'm the one who said to him, Rambo's got to go to Afghanistan because it's similar to Rambo 2. If the Soviets are involved, and it's a war zone.
And at the time,
it was in the news all the time.
Yeah.
Afghanistan, because the Americans were giving weapons to what ended up being the Taliban.
Yeah.
So my idea was that Rambo goes over there to hook up with the rebels and to get them some weapons for the CIA. And we pretty much were on the same page as far as what Rambo 3 needed to be.
And how much of the script that you wrote for Rambo 3 is on screen? Is basically what we see on screen your script, or is it?
Stallone actually, most of the dialogue is Stallone's. I'm the one who basically I wrote the action scenes. I basically wrote the first draft of it with Rambo. He gets approached in Thailand by the CIA, and then he ends up going to Afghanistan. So basically, I pretty much laid out the whole plot.
And with Colonel Troutman and all that
with
stuff.
Troutman and all that. And actually, what's interesting too is Stallone and I diverged a bit on how the story gets going, because we both agreed, like, okay, Afghanistan, Rambo was going to take weapons over there, and Stallone was thinking, okay, Rambo goes to Troutman, or Troutman goes to Rambo and says, hey, Johnny, I need you to go to Afghanistan. And Rambo basically says, okay, John, let me go get my gear and I'm ready to go. And I told him, I don't think it would work that way with somebody who's an actual Vietnam veteran, a combat vet, who's been through as much shit as Rambo has been through. He wouldn't want to go. Basically, he would say, look, I fought my war. I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. Sorry, Colonel, but
my war is over.
I fought my war. My war is over. All right. So Rambo. So Troutman ends up going over to Afghanistan on his own without Rambo. Gets captured, and then Rambo gets word that his mentor, Colonel Troutman's been captured.
Which brings forth so much more drama and greatness.
Huh? Yeah, he's being held by them. So
that was all yours.
That was you.
That was my idea. That was basically my take on it. Was that Rambo wouldn't say yes right away.
Let me ask you this, Sheldon. Did you come up with that Eskrima fight at the beginning, or was that Sly? And then what about the I guess it would be a polo. They had the polo little war when he's on the horse.
Well, that was my idea.
That's great.
Oh, where he picks up the sheep.
Yeah, that's great. Because he was a big polo guy for a while. Was doing that professionally.
But that was something that they were doing, that they actually did in Afghanistan. It's called Buzkashi. And so I told Sly about that.
And he probably loved it.
He loved it, like, oh shoot, it's like polo.
Yeah.
Now were you on set?
No, never on set.
Did you have anything else to do with Rambo 3 once you were done writing?
Only writing a letter to the Writers Guild so that Stallone and I would share credit and not have to split credit. There was another writer involved too. I'm blanking on his name, but he also wrote. He was an old time guy from the 40s and 50s, and I believe he wrote Fantastic Voyage. He's got a screenplay credit on Fantastic Voyage. He was also hired at the same time to write a screenplay, and he wrote a screenplay also basically with the Afghanistan idea. And he wanted credit on the film as a writer. So basically, they did a credit arbitration, Writers go to the credit arbitration. They look at everybody's screenplays. But Stallone and I we basically were calling ourselves a team. So we're a team, and the other guy wrote his version of the script on his own without us. So I wrote the letter for the Writers Guild arbitration, basically saying that Stallone and I should get sole credit for writing the screenplay. And I still have the letter, by the way. So that was my like Sly wasn't interested in writing a letter. He was just pissed off, like, oh, that guy didn't do shit. So I said, okay, Sly, I'll write the letter. I wrote the letter, and we ended up getting our sole screenplay credit on Rambo 3.
And next up after Rambo was outside of Jean-Claude, because we've covered all that.
Right.
So where does Ruskies fall in? Was that before Rambo or after Rambo? Because you wrote Ruskies, right?
Yeah. Co-wrote with Ruskies with a writing partner named Alan J. Glickman. And Alan and I actually, I fill in the blanks on my career, because Alan and I actually wrote a number of screenplays that we got hired to write by studios. Huh?
Did they get made?
No, Ruskies is the only one that got made.
How did Ruskies come about?
Well, I told Alan about this incident.
So just to back off a little bit, was this before Rambo? You're writing on...
I think it was. It was before Rambo, because then when I got hired to write Rambo 3, people were congratulating Alan. I said, hey, we hear you're co-writing Rambo 3. He said, no, that's my writing partner.
Right.
I'm not working on that one now. So Ruskies, a friend of mine was in the Navy, and he was stationed at a naval base, naval communications base in Maine. And one day, they find a raft washed up on the beach. It's got Cyrillic writing on it. So it's a Russian raft. Basically, the Russians we used to do surveillance on them. They did surveillance on us. And what's funny is, before we wrote the screenplay, we actually pitched Ruskies. Well, come think of it, we didn't write a screenplay. We had a pitch. We pitched it to different producers. And a few executives even said, oh, come on now, the Russians don't spy. The Russians don't send submarines to spy on us. Oh, yes, they do. Yeah. And then they really did find this raft washed up at the naval station in May. But yeah, people were saying, nah, it doesn't happen. Just like I said, when I was working on Max, I had executives tell me, come on, there's no way to steal weapons from a military base in America. Yes, there is. In fact, I had stolen weapons offered to me. Somebody, when I was in the Marine Corps, there's another Marine, and he was stealing shit, and he offered me an M16. Do you want to buy an M16? Well, sure enough, M16. Okay.
Did you buy it?
Huh?
Did you buy it?
No.
Sure, Sheldon, sure. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
They're trying to get me one of the brig here.
Yeah.
But
So to go back to Ruskies.
okay.
So you do a treatment. Did you
No,
write?
actually, we didn't even have a treatment. Alan
Was just a straight up pitch.
Alan was the best in the world at pitching stories. He could basically, it's like you're sitting around a campfire and he's telling a long story. He could tell stories. He could pitch for like an hour straight, and everything sounded great. He could make everything sound. He was not a good writer, but he could pitch his ass off,
Which is equally important.
Yes,
which is equally important because he got us the deal for Ruskies. We pitched it to actually the guy who Herb Jaffe was his name. Herb Jaffe was like a kind of a prominent old-time producer. We pitched to a lot of people, and we got turned down a lot of times. But Herb produced The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming, okay? Which is kind of a similar premise. And so Alan's pitching away. He's pitching. Herb's just sitting there, stone faced, not saying anything. I'm not saying anything because Alan could do so much better than me. And finally, Alan just says, "Excuse me, Mr. Jaffe, are you interested in this at all?" Because Alan just felt that he was nodding off. He was not even listening to him. And Herb says, "I'm interested." So we ended up getting a deal. We actually got paid money to write that screenplay. And then Herb got it to another company, which is some company that doesn't exist anymore. It got shuffled around. And eventually, it got made. Yeah.
So next up, again, we're keeping this episode independent of Sheldon and Van Damme. So
Right.
next up is Only the Strong.
Oh, but wait a second. I want to tell you, I got another little aside for that one.
We're talking about Ruskies again.
Yeah, about Ruskies. So they did a screening. They had some screenings of Ruskies. And I invited Jean-Claude. This is pre-Bloodsport, pre-anything. I invited Jean-Claude to a screening of Ruskies. And so he sees it, and afterwards he says, "You know what? They should have cast me to play that Russian guy." And actually, Jean-Claude would have been much better as the Russian.
Well, ironically, he plays a Russian in Black Eagle.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. And he played a Russian in No Retreat, No Surrender.
Correct. Yeah. So he was perfect to play a Russian guy, and he knew it.
The stars were aligning, but they were aligning where it needed to be.
Right.
Yeah.
So if only I had met him prior to, maybe I could have gotten him into Ruskies.
But that might have thrown his career in a different trajectory. Yeah. You never know. That's the thing.
Another interesting coincidence too with Ruskies. One of the Russians was played by Voyo Gorin.
Oh, okay. Yeah, perfect.
The famous Voyo.
Famous Voyo. And then I ended up seeing Voyo. And so actually Voyo and I, we had talked before he did Rambo 2. So we kind of knew one another. And then he ended up playing one of the Russian bad guys in Rambo 2. And he has a fight with Stallone on the helicopter and ends up getting thrown out of the helicopter. Voyo was one tough son of a bitch.
Let's not forget he's also in Lionheart.
Yeah. Oh, I'm coming to that too. Yeah. So we kind of got to be buddies. And then when I was casting Lionheart, I basically my casting director didn't even have to bring it in. I said, "Okay, I want this guy Voyo to play." I said, "Voyo's going to play one of those Legionnaires, and Jean-Claude's buddy Michel Kesey's going to play the other one."
So they were perfect for both.
Yeah, they were perfect. They were great. Yeah.
So roll on to Only the Strong. How does that come about? Because there was not a capoeira movie before.
Right.
How did it all come about?
Okay. So I worked Jean-Claude into the Ruskies story, all right?
Yeah.
I'm going to work Jean-Claude into this one, too.
Okay.
Because I had gone to France with Jean-Claude. This might have been, trying to think if it was before or after Lionheart. It was before Lionheart, I'm pretty sure. We go to France, and I meet Sammy Hadida, and Sammy is the one who brought Jean-Claude over there, and he brought me over there too. I think Jean-Claude's the one who kind of pushed me to come to France with him. But I think I was working on Lionheart at the time.
Was it because you were in France for the promotion of Lionheart with Sammy Hadida?
Correct, but this is
before you made Lionheart.
Yeah, this is before that. We go to.
So we're going back to 1989, before Lionheart.
I'm bad
because Only the Strong was 93, correct?
Yeah.
So this is quite a bit of time before.
Yeah.
Right. Sammy. Actually, wait a second. This is after I made Double Impact. This is after I made Double Impact and Lionheart.
Okay, so it's 1991 then.
No, actually, no. We are going back earlier. This is when I went to France for Budo Fest. There's this martial arts event there called Budo Fest, and so Sammy was there, Jean-Claude was there, and there was a capoeira demonstration as part of Budo Fest.
It was called Budo Gala. It was at the Paris Versa. It was on every year, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So it's Budo Gala. I'm calling it Budo Fest.
Either one.
So there's this capoeira demonstration, which we're all very impressed with that. But then Sammy comes to me like it's a couple of years later after I made Lionheart Double Impact. He loved actually he ended up picking up Double Impact for France, and he comes to me and says, "You remember that capoeira demonstration we saw in Paris? I want to do a martial arts movie that basically focuses on capoeira. It's not about karate or kung fu, any of that. Capoeira. Uh, would you like to write it and direct it?" And we were in L.A. and actually we had just watched. I think I was mixing Double Impact at the time, or maybe it was already finished. But anyway, Sammy saw it, and he came to me. He wanted me to write and direct a capoeira movie. So Luis Esteban and we've been friends for a while. And Luis had told me, and I was looking for new ideas for a movie. And Luis had told me about the time that he taught martial arts to like 12 of the worst kids at some school in New York. And I think it was just basically karate or something like that. But anyway, so Luis taught. These are the kids that are all delinquents. So basically, the school said, let's teach them some martial arts and see if that turns them around and gives them a different direction in their lives. And Luis was the guy who taught them. So he told me about this, and I said, well, that's a great idea for a movie. Great premise. So we started talking about that. I don't think I ever wrote anything, but we were just tossing it around as an idea. So then when Sammy came to me about the Capoeira movie, I called Luis afterwards. I said, hey, what if we did that movie about you and the kids at the high school, and we focus on Capoeira instead of karate? So basically, that was
it.
now we have a premise for Only the Strong, and we I think we got hired by there were a couple of other producers involved, Stuart Shapiro and Steve Menken, and they had all put some money together to make a movie with Sammy Medina. There was also a foreign sales guy named Gregory Visconti, and so they had some money to hire writers, and so they hired me and Luis to write the screenplay, and so we did, and one thing led to another. But Sammy was really fixated on doing a capoeira movie, so that moved forward.
How did you come into contact with Mark Dacascos and make a decision that he's our guy?
I was introduced to Mark. It was not even in connection to Only the Strong. I was introduced to him. He had a manager named Catherine James at the time, and Catherine called me up and said, "Hey, I'd like you to meet a client of mine, Mark Dacascos, who I think you should do a martial arts movie with. He's skilled at this, and that." So we weren't talking about capoeira or Only the Strong at all. So I met Mark. He actually came to my house, and the first thing I said to him, because I didn't know it at the time, I said, "You're Asian." He said, "Oh yeah, well, Filipino and Hawaiian, yada yada." I said, "Okay, well, that's fine," but I didn't realize because the name Dacascos, it's not like Philip Reed, okay?
Right.
Okay, obviously this guy's doing that. So, anyways, we kind of hit it off, and so I knew about Mark. I was impressed with the way he looked. I knew he could do. He was a great acrobat. He could do gymnastics, and then and I believe he might. He told me he knew capoeira. Now it gets a little cloudy for me here, but I know that I ended up saying, how about this guy Mark Dacascos to play the lead? And Mark just happened to be studying with Amen in Santa Monica. He just happened to be studying capoeira. So basically, again, it's the stars aligning.
Yeah.
It was not easy to get Mark in the movie because he, and like he had just done American Samurai, if I'm not mistaken. He was like the villain
Yeah.
in
Yes.
American Samurai.
He's excellent in it, by the way.
Yeah, he is. And so Catherine told me, yeah, he's the co-star of American Samurai. You should really meet this guy. Because I was doing these Van Damme movies, she figured, if we introduce him to Mark, maybe you can do some martial arts movie with Mark.
Yeah, of course.
So one thing led to another. And then I can't remember if Mark was the one who introduced us to a man. I think he did. I think because we started talking capoeira, and he said, "Well, I just happen to be studying capoeira in Santa Monica with this guy, Manny." So we met man. I think we went to his dojo, and yeah, basically one thing led to another, and so I told the producers we should really make Mark the lead character in Only the Strong.
And they fought you.
Well, they fought me on that because Gregory Cascanti, in particular, was kept saying he looks like my Filipino houseboy.
Not in the slightest.
Huh?
Well, this guy's got very good looking houseboy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Great physique.
Right.
Yeah.
But
So
here's the next part of this though, as far as his look. Okay. Basically all the producers said, okay, all right, we'll give him a shot, but he's got to have some plastic surgery. Now this I've not talked about in public before. And I don't know if it's embarrassing for Mark, or Mark has basically moved beyond that, but they basically said he's got to get some plastic surgery, make him look less Filipino. If we're gonna put this movie together with him starring in it, he's got to do some plastic surgery. So,
which is a completely ridiculous statement.
Yeah. But he did it. Okay, he didn't have any bridge to his nose, which is kind of a Filipino look, basically. It dipped down there. So they took some cartilage from the back of his ear and they filled that in. Then they cut. There was a couple of I forgot what. I'm not good at these medical terms, but they made a couple of cuts so that his eyes.
The musculature.
Huh?
The musculature in the face.
Yeah. So that the eyes wouldn't be.
They droop a little more.
Wouldn't look slanty.
Right.
Because there was a little bit of.
Oh, so they gave more flexibility in this area.
There was a little bit of slant to his eyes, which really gave him the Asian look, or the half Asian look. So that was the first thing I noticed when I met him face to face. And I said, "Oh, you're Asian." Okay, I didn't know that with the name like Mark Dacascos. But so they cut a couple of tendons or something back here, so that his eyes weren't pulled back quite as much. And I can't remember. Those were the key things: was filling in the gap in the nose and making the eyes less slanted. And there might have been something else that was added also.
And that shows you just how hungry Mark was ready to get out there and show.
And he was not.
Yeah.
He really didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And they felt kind of insulted that they even.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be insulted.
And I had to talk him into it, and I felt it was very unfair to make him do that. But the producers were going to pay. They paid for the surgery. So it's nothing out of pocket for him. And actually,
it says a lot about his character and his desire and ambition and motivation and drive.
100%.
But it did help him because he was able to transition between being Asian and being.
Well, he's kind of both.
He is kind of both.
Yeah. You can get away with it for sure. Yeah.
Oh, and one of the ways I got Sammy Adida, especially, to come on board with Mark. Before Mark had the surgery, Sammy had optioned a project called Crying Freeman, which ended up being Mark's first starring role. But in Crying Freeman, the character is Asian, or he's like half Asian. And it was a comic. I think it was a comic book. Then it was an anime. So I saw the anime version of it when I was in fortunately, in Hong Kong, I was able to find a copy of Crying Freeman. So I looked at it. I thought it was a terrific little movie. But the one thing that I noticed that I told Sammy, Sammy, Mark looks just like the guy in Crying Freeman. He's a ringer for the guy in Crying Freeman. And Crying Freeman didn't have a real actor. It was animated.
Mm.
But the guy looked like Mark Dacascos without the surgery. So I told Sammy, look, you're planning to make this movie, Crying Freeman. You don't have a star for it yet. Take a look at Mark. He looks just like the guy in Crying Freeman. And Sammy basically took that to heart and said, you're right. And he ended up casting Mark in Crying Freeman, where Mark met his wife, by the way. His wife is the female lead in that one.
Yeah.
It was directed by Christoph Gans, who ended up directing a few other movies with Mark. I believe he directed Brotherhood of the Wolf. And he did a few other things for Sammy Hadida also. So Christoph directed the feature version of Crying Freeman, which was never released in the U.S., by the way. I don't even know if you can get it on video.
Crying Freeman.
Crying
It's available
Freeman.
on DVD.
Huh?
It's available on.
It is okay.
Sure, yeah.
But is it the one with Mark Dacascos?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he had to do this, the kind of surgery thing. But correct me if I'm wrong. You also had mentioned that he gained 15 or 20 pounds, didn't he?
Well, that was my suggestion.
Because in the time
it was more than a suggestion. I said, Mark, you got to bulk up if you're going to be the star of this movie. You got to get you got to get more like Stallone and Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren. You got to bulk yourself up because he's kind of skinny. Otherwise,
his physique was great and Only Strong.
He looks fantastic. He looks better in Only Strong than any other movie that he's made.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
When the extra muscle didn't hinder his
no, it didn't.
At all.
The extra muscle didn't hinder his movement.
No, it did not hinder his movements. Also,
so then, of course, you have Jeffrey Lewis.
Yeah,
who played Frank Everett in Double Impact. I'm guessing you brought him in.
I brought him in. Yeah, we saw a few other actors for it. And in fact, one of the actors that I saw for it was Martin Sheen.
Okay.
Sheen, yeah, wanted to play that role. But I think it couldn't work it out money-wise. There were a few prominent names that came in for that role.
What about...
and then finally I said, what about Jeffrey Lewis?
Yes.
Okay.
What, did you just pick up the phone?
Huh?
Did you just pick up the phone?
I got my casting director to pick up the phone.
And then you brought in Paco Prieto, the pool fighter from Lionheart.
Right.
Now, was that another thing of just let me pick up the phone?
Yeah, well, look, it was. Yeah.